and welcome to this UniCourse video. My name is Ashley and the topic of today's session is conducting a PESTLE analysis. Now today's session aims to take you through a step-by-step approach to conducting a PESTLE analysis within the business environment. Now just bringing you back down to why a PESTLE analysis or why a PESTLE analysis is used. I want you to just go back to a couple of sessions ago. So a couple of sessions ago, we looked at introducing you to strategy and then an introduction to strategic analysis. And them sessions are on our playlist. So please feel free to watch them back if you like. But what I'd like to just point out at the start of this session today is the three core areas of strategic management and where the PESTLE analysis basically fits within. So if we look at the first core step, it's strategic analysis. So it's basically looking at the current state of the organisation and analysing where they are now. Then you'd be looking at the second stage, which is strategic development, which is about basically looking at options and information and data from that analysis to make informed decisions, to then be able to go to the third stage, which is strategic implementation. Okay, so just consider that strategic analysis informs our key decisions in projects and operations. And today, in a fast-moving, ever-changing world, a leader needs this to react to events, needs to be able to strategically think, to critically reflect on the current practices, to be able to react and respond to changes in the environment in real time or be able to plan for that. So I just wanted to point that out before we started. So if you need any more information on strategic analysis or the introduction to strategy, move back onto our videos and have a little look at them. But let's get started with the PESTLE. So I want to just talk to you and just give you a brief history. Now, although some of the information is imprecise, a PESTLE analysis is, one of the most popular environmental scanning tools and usually used to analyse the macro environment. It's a strategic planning tool as well, so the data and information can be used to be able to plan your strategy out. As I said, going back to the first stage in strategic management, the first core stage. But looking at the history, it differs when you do research, but most of the research comes back to around the 1960s, and it says that the PESTLE was accredited to Francis Aguilar, and it first operated not as a PESTLE, but as ETPS. So the ETPS stands for, it's an acronym that stands for economic, technological, political, and social. And it's later evolved into the PESTLE, and some organisations even use STEEPLE as well, and that includes ethics to their analysis. But towards the end of the 1970s and 80s, consider the changes in the world. So, understanding the PESTLE, it's a great way to understand the market when conducting strategic analysis. It's fundamental in market planning and strategizing, and it could be carried out or completed to comprehend or when you introduce new products or services or to identify their market trends. But the tool itself gives an organisation an overview of the whole situation, or you can think of it as like a bird's eye view. So you're looking over the organisation, and when you see diagrams of a PESTLE, often they are used in a circular format because they consider the organisation in the middle and the external influences that could impact on that organisation. But going back, in the 1970s, the 1980s, businesses realised that they had a responsibility towards ensuring their strategic plans were not causing damage to the environment. Also, a lot of environmental laws and regulations were introduced, and businesses were required to respond and abide to them regulations. So this resulted in the E being added to um, to the past, and you know, moving forward more recently, it's become necessary to incorporate and ensure strategic decisions are ethically correct. Um, Pest could ensure some detail. Steeple could probably ensure more details. So if you are going doing an in-depth analysis of the current state of the organisation, and maybe you do that every year or every quarter, um, you may just want to do a pest every quarter and then a steeple every year. It depends on how you go about strategizing in your organisation. Some organisations only strategize every 3 years. Now, obviously, it depends on what industry you're in, because consider a fast-paced industry like technology or software. Think about, they'd need to know what's out there and what could impact on their organisation, probably more so than a corner shop. So, yeah, it's important to think about industry and how often that you are completing PESTLE as well. So again, thinking about what is a PESTLE analysis, well, we know it's an acronym. It's got 6 factors, and one can be added, two can be taken it away. But let's look at it from a PESTLE perspective. It's strategic use. It's a strategic tool used to analyse the environment. And when we say the environment, we mean external factors that have an impact on operations. And in most cases, the organisation have no control over these at all. But you need to be aware of them to be able to understand the impact and then possibly make a plan to change it if necessary. And I've noted down here that it is a strategic tool and it can be used alongside other strategic tools as well. And when we say strategy, consider a plan of action designed to achieve a long-term overall aim. So think about strategy as, the purpose, so an organization's mission, vision, goals and objectives. Think of, the environment as internal and external factors that will affect the organisation in the pursuit of that purpose. And then think about the capabilities, which is how the organisation goes about, achieving that purpose. And that takes us back to the last session we did with the SWOT analysis that looks at the strengths and the weaknesses, opportunities and the threats. Whereas the strengths and the weaknesses usually rely on internal capabilities and resources and can think about how they can respond to opportunities and threats. But have a look at our playlist if you want to look at the SWOT analysis video and session with a little bit more information. So we keep talking about strategy, we keep talking about a PESTLE, or how can a PESTLE be used in strategy? Now, the best way to use a PESTLE is, to use it continuously, to use it regularly, to actually do something with it. I've seen organisations conduct PESTLE analysis and do absolutely nothing with it, even though that they know that there's things that are going to impact on their organisation. You need to action. You need to, analyse the actual points of the PESTLE analysis to be able to move forward. But, thinking about the organisational environment and thinking about the different areas, you've got the micro environment that, it has the direct impact on business activities, if the distributors or the suppliers were to change, a lot has due to Brexit. That could have a severe impact on the organisation. You'd need to plan for that. And then you've got the macro environment, which is more general to industry. And that's where you mainly focus the PESTLE analysis on. So where does it fit in with other strategic analysis tools? You think about the strategic planning, you think about, okay, well, let's analyse the current state first. And you're looking at the external environment and the internal capabilities. Then you could use for the external environment, not just a PESTLE, but you could use the Porter's Five Forces as well. You could use the SWOT, the ANSOP in the strategic definition, or also you could use the SWOT in the internal capabilities if you're thinking about the strengths and the weaknesses as well. So there's a number of strategic management tools that you can use, and using them side by side, it's not a problem. You could use them singly if you want, but using them side by side for different stages of a strategic management is really useful, and can be really beneficial as well to give you a really, really clear view of the current state as well. Okay, so in an organisation, as a middle manager, or even a leader of a team, or even a team member, you might be asked to provide information for the PESTLE analysis for a number of different reasons. Now, just consider that, for a good PESTLE analysis, you need different perspectives. You need a couple of different perspectives, maybe from different departments, maybe at different levels as well. Because, for example, that they might have ideas, or they might be able to analyse that situation a little bit more to be able to respond to that external impact a little bit more efficiently, because different people have got different expertise on it. Also, if, for example, you've got an IT technician who understands software development and understands that there's a recent trend coming out, and you're not involving them within a PESTLE analysis, and you're not sure about the implications on that specific factor, then that person might have great insight into that area. So it's good to consider different people that are going to be having and thinking about how analysing the organisation's external environment will impact on the different departments as well. Then, thinking about assessing the organisation's internal capabilities, and you complete a SWOT side by side with a PESTLE analysis, but it's more about how well it can respond to the external forces against the organisation as well. And thinking about how you can prepare, thinking about how you can respond, how can you react to that influence on your organisation. And then providing the information and providing the data, the information, statistics you might be asked for, or research in a specific area might help for better problem solving, better options for responding on a change to react to that influence. And you may be involved in aiding the implementation of that strategy. So you might be saying, well, these are the options, this is what we're going to do, and you might be involved in then informing your team why you're going to do it, and letting them know the outcome of the PESTLE. You might even want to give the members of your team a copy of the PESTLE analysis so they can clearly see why change is happening. Because a lot of people respond negatively to change, especially if they don't know why things are changing. And that brings you straight back to change management. It's a subject in itself, but being able to positively manage change it's difficult. And making sure that you've got the correct information, that you've done your research, that you're fully aware of what's going on externally, to then be able to inform your team of why these changes are happening, and you're responding to something that's actually happening that you've got no control over, but you can control how the response is planned and put together, will make people understand why they're involved in that change, and will be a little bit more effective. So yeah, aiding in the implementation and just getting involved really in that strategic process. So I'm going to break down a little bit more into the key areas and just give you some examples throughout. So remember that political is not legal. Sometimes they do overlap. Obviously, if governments change and put together acts, they can turn into regulations and actual laws. And, they can actually interlink, shall we say, and just try and be clear. And, consider that, if elections are coming up as well, that might have a big change on the organisation. So often if you're doing a PESTLE around that time, you might want to look at the main concerns and the main things that they're going to change and just try and have maybe a plan A and a plan B if you don't implement the strategy at that point. But remember, when we're talking about political, we're talking about the government stability, things like freedom of speech, corruption, even, war and terrorism. What's going on in Ukraine at the moment has a real big impact on our organisations, relating to so many different things. And if you were to really analyse it, and how our government's responding to that, that could impact on your organisation. Think about government policies, any regulation trends as well, and things like tax policy. You know, every organisation has got to be impacted by the national insurance increase. Every person, every organisation that's got payroll has had to deal with, how they change that. So, and the policy, and even the HR and how they're informing the staff, training might have needed to be happening with regards to that. So, they're all different examples of political impacts and influences. But if you look on Moodle, we've got plenty of examples and ideas and questions to ask yourself to bring you back to how you can actually find political influences that can impact on your organisation. Moving on to economical, and I've noted down that it can often be seen as the most important for organisation, the most important influence, especially in developing economies that are prone to sudden or significant economic shocks from external sources. So think like the stock market and, and shares and ISIS and stuff like that. So interest rate changes can be a big one here. Even things like globalization, if an organisation is expanding, they need to weigh up the economical influences in different areas, maybe job growth as well, inflation, international trends. There's plenty to look for when you're thinking about economical factors. But what economical factors can affect your organisation and not just the general population or the general industry as a whole. So when we're looking at social, I'll give you some pointers here, and you can think of like fashion, fads, trends. You can even look at things like holidays. At Christmas, you might have a really big, that might impact on your organisation significantly. Some organisations make most of the profit at Christmas time. So, you could think about different holidays, you could think about demographics, cultural values and belief. Think about, if you were to open a new restaurant, maybe say like a vegan restaurant, would it be better opening it by a university or by someone with an age, somewhere that's got a bit of an aged population? You've got to think about the different factors, the social factors such as, income levels. If you're opening a Michelin star in, in an area that's that's not known for high salaries, then are you going to earn money in that area as well? If your business is coming and struggling, maybe you might want to complete a PESTLE analysis to be able to identify any issues, to be able to react to them issues before you think about, closing down the company. Now, technology is probably the quickest changing, factor, and it's important to keep an eye on this, like as much as you possibly can. Even if you've just got your, research and development or your marketing team keeping an eye on technology in the area. But, level of innovation in technology is drastically and like changing and improving every day. Consider the fact that we've went from using cash to using a card to then using a card with this chip, to then using a phone, to then using PayPal. And to be honest, most of the time this month I've either used my phone, bank transfer, or PayPal. I haven't even had to get my bank card or cash out my pocket. So like the changes in the way that people buy things now, and and the fact that technology has changed so much, so it's allowed our organisations to go global as well, is something that really needs to be kept an eye on, because competitors can stand out so much more from us as technology allows them to. So just be careful and always, keep an eye on that one as well. So when you're looking at law, laws and regulations and standards, and they change all the time. So it's important to keep an eye on them, even if there's just slight amendments to them. I mean, an example that we had a couple of years ago, which impacted on every organisation, and in the world probably, or certainly in the UK, is the Data Protection Act and the changes to the data protection. And obviously that impacts on how you held customers' information and how you could market to customers as well. So a lot of our policies needed to be changed within our organisation. Well, we're the same as with every organisation, but our HR team needed to go and undergo training, so then they could come back, change policies, conduct training sessions with everybody, and with more in-depth training sessions with the people involved. So we planned, we had a date that was going to change, and we knew that the implications of us not making them changes. So we reacted to that change, made a plan for that change, and were ready for it once it was there. So, laws, it's important that every organisation understands where they stand there, and whether that's in relation to new laws, or, even just industry specific regulations as well. If they change, a big part of your organisation might need to change, especially if it's in relation to health and safety or managing risks. So it's important to be able to be fully aware of the legal side of the organisation as well. Okay, so we mentioned before that more than ever, organisations need to understand the carbon footprints, the CO2 emissions, where they stand basically, in relation to the environmental influences on the planet, basically. And you can think of a lot about sustainability here. You could think about it in two different ways. Now, you can break it down into the ecological issues, thinking about, climate change, the weather, CO2 emissions, things like that, how we could be more sustainable. But also think about it as the environment in which we work. So if, for example, it's like the physical environment. So if, for example, you are working for a construction firm and you've got building works going on, you need to make sure that you're informing, schools that are close by, or, organisations that are close by, of where you're going to be working and stuff as well. So think about it from the physical environment. Also, you can link the two, and think of what is your waste, and how could you minimise your waste in that particular workplace. That might be working out more efficient recycling procedures as well. So think about the environment from that point of view. And obviously there's so many new regulations, laws, acts, standards relating to the environment. You can think back a couple of years ago when it came out that it was a law not to sell plastic straws in cups no more. So then not every outlet is providing paper straws or whatever, and I've had to adapt to that. Consider, shops and supermarkets and the plastic bags that they that they couldn't give away for nothing. They would have to sell from there on, so they had to probably put labels everywhere and have a process in place. So yeah, changes to the environment. And then thinking about, you can also link the environment with ethics as well, but ethics more concerned about how you can work in an ethical way to, think about corporate social responsibility. Think about, you're responsible for the way in which you work, and whether that's in relation to distributors or suppliers, or, it might go back to the Equal Pay Act, thinking about how you can work ethically. It can also link in with environmental sustainability and processes as well. So I want to touch on the advantages and limitations for the PESTLE analysis. And honestly, they are quite similar to the SWOT analysis that we reported last week. It is a simple framework. It encourages the development of strategic and critical thinking. You're thinking outside of your box and your comfort zone, but it's also flexible. You can use it in all different areas. So you could use it for marketing, you could use it for recruitment, maybe you could use it, in different areas. If you've got a new project or a new service or a new product, you could use it in that way as well. So yeah, it is flexible. It can be flexible. But we do have a number of templates on Moodle as well. Some of them are more simplistic, some of them are more complex. So if you can maybe look at points in your, key points in your PESTLE, and then go and do a little bit more research on it, and then look at analysing them key points to get key information and data to then be able to make informed decisions for your strategic plan. And then disadvantages is, yeah, okay, it does oversimplify data, but you could then use that data to then go and form, make more informed decisions by analysing that data, finding trends, finding a little bit more information on that. And you might need to go and move away and get customers to complete surveys, or get suppliers to complete feedback forms, or you might be able to do your PESTLE and then move a little bit further to find out a bit more information to then be able to plan better. Some assumptions may be made that prove unfounded at a later date, and I probably say more so in relation to technology, that by the time you've reacted to that change, it's changed again, because it's very, very fast paced, that factor. And that's why it's important to complete a strategic tool, a strategic analysis often, and at regular intervals as well. So I'm going to break it down for 5 stages. I mean, you could break it down even further. You could say 5 stages and then break it down into the 6 factors. But firstly, understand the factors. Political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental. And I provided you with small breakdowns on the following on the past slides, and quite small writing on this slide. Sorry, but we do have quite a lot of information on Moodle if you'd like to have a little look. And we've broken down, I'll give you some examples, we'll give you questions, as I mentioned before. Gather the relevant data, even if it's key points leading to, a full analysis and evaluation of the information before then you do identify opportunities, identify the threats, and then be able to take action. And taking action is really important. There's no point in conducting any analysis really, or any assessment, or any, or using any tool or technique if you're not going to use it for something. So take action. And then I've looked at a couple of examples, and there's many, many online. If you're considering to yourself, okay, how can I start? If you were to just look at industry-specific PESTLEs, you'll probably see a couple that will give you some ideas. And this PESTLE is for Coca-Cola, which is obviously a very, very popular brand. And it says here that social is changing consumers' preferences. Now, considering that a lot of consumers now are looking for things like that are sugarless, that are more healthy, and the trend is for healthier drinks. So maybe they're having to change their perspective and have some new lines of healthier drinks just to meet the needs of the customers there. And it says the environment, water consumption, that's a consideration, and they can think about how they can respond to that. Legal could be litigations and legal claims, and it's important. Probably branding fits in with there as well. So if anyone was using their brand without their say so, that would probably link in with that. Or they might think, how can we improve our brand by different advertisements, maybe aiming them more at the changing customer preferences. So you can link the PESTLE in that way as well. But for effective strategic analysis, a PESTLE analysis should be done continuously on a regular basis, and if so, side by side with other analytical tools as well. This one's quite interesting. I'm sorry, the slide is quite wordy, but you can see this this PowerPoint on any of the units that relate to PESTLE. But this one's for Airbnb, and it breaks down the factors, say political factors, and it tells you clearly that unregulated housing laws, and it says Airbnb is a unique business. People offer to rent their homes, apartments, rooms to strangers, but the company has run into legal issues. Some locations available to rent don't follow state housing laws and regulations, so they need to look at their political stance before maybe allowing the stakeholders to rent a property within a specific area. So there's a lot that you can think about from these, and as you can see, this one is a little bit more detailed because it points out the key points or the key bits of data, and then it provides you with information after analysis. So it could break it down in this way, but this is also a template that we've got on Moodle, and it looks at the factor, but it looks at two specific questions. What is the factor that's being identified? To identify that factor clearly, and what is the impact on this business factor? Because just pointing out the factor itself isn't going to make any use unless you're analysing that factor and bringing some key information into the strategic development and development options and then processes for plans in the future. So today we've gone through the history of the PESTLE. We've looked at the different factors and different components of a PESTLE. We've looked at how a PESTLE can influence and impact on an organisation and its external environments that we don't really have control over, but we can plan for to be able to react and respond to that change effectively, so it doesn't have a severe impact on the organisation. And it's essential to learn and know the business environment as to understand the various forces on the business to then be able to respond to it effectively. A PESTLE analysis is effective if it's done continuously, if it's done regularly, and if it's analysed and actions have actually formulated from it. But if you do have any further questions on PESTLE analysis or any other analytical tools that relate to strategy, have a look at our videos that we've added to the playlist list more recently. An introduction to strategy, strategic analysis, conducting a SWOT analysis, and this one, conducting a PESTLE. That concludes our series on strategy. The next series we will host and will be on performance management. But thank you for watching today, and any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Hope to see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.